Jeff, we're starting if you want to come in.
He broke something.
Okay.
So online, where is everybody visiting us from today? Oh, we got somebody calling from LA. That's nice.
Seattle. All right.
Seattle. Nice.
Welcome from Seattle, Johnny, and LA, Mia.
Detroit. Yes.
All right.
Lauren was here last time, wasn't she?
Yeah, we know Lauren.
We know
I
Lauren.
remember
We
that
know Lauren.
picture.
Well, I did want to start you off with a very inconsequential question. So please feel free to debate this or put an answer in the chat. Cereal, is it soup?
Only if you let it soak
Yes.
too long.
In my opinion, cereal is soup. But I define soup as, I don't know. I've never thought about the definition of soup. This bowl of liquid that you eat with a spoon.
She said cereal. She didn't say cereal with milk.
But it's liquid with some solids. It's primarily
Not if you don't
liquid
put
with some
milk in it.
solids. Oh, you're thinking like dry cereal.
That's how I eat cereal.
Oh,
You do dry.
okay.
Whoa.
So he's saying cereal in and of itself is not soup.
Uh-huh.
Is it soup if you put it in milk?
I'd say probably.
No.
Yeah. No?
I say
No.
no.
Well, probably not.
Guess you and Teresa are on the same page, Jeff.
All right. No.
Although
Cereal.
Lauren makes a good point. There are cold soups.
Right, but I didn't say it had to be hot.
It could be hot
That's
milk too.
Yeah.
No.
That sounds
It's
like
not soup.
Oh man. I mean, I guess you could warm up your cereal, but then who wants to do that, right?
I think of soup with noodle or something like that, or that type of thing is what I think of soup.
Mm.
Well, I will tell you,
See,
you get
a
very,
good
very
question.
strange looks if you refer to it as soup.
Look at
This
Lauren.
is true.
Check out Lauren's question.
Does this mean oatmeal is soup?
Well, if you put,
See, I'm right there with you, Lauren.
we'll see. That depends how liquefied it is.
That's
If you have
true.
way too much
You
milk,
get
water,
steel cut
whatever,
oats. Yeah.
Then
Though I believe technically they call oatmeal porridge.
oh, that could be.
And I won't get into the book I read about that, so. So very, very, very inconsequential, but fun to debate with your friends. So did we want to go ahead and get started while we wait?
Do people just not care about, is it you or is it the topic? I mean, usually there's more people here. I don't understand. Serious.
Well, while I'm flattered at the implication that I drove them all away, I think there might be something else going on here. All right.
Foy was promoting it at the meeting this morning. I thought he'd be here.
I can chime in on that one. It took me a long time to be able to find the link for the to get into this webinar. So maybe that's what people are having trouble doing.
That is entirely possible. Well, we are used to having more people in person
Yeah,
too.
and I was thinking in person.
So not quite sure what's going on, but I think it's 5 after. We can go ahead and get started. And we are getting started with Confluence. I'm sorry, the camera's positioned weird. So when I actually look over there, I'm trying to see who's like over there and what's in the chat. But if I do that, then you're seeing the back of my head. So, that's lovely.
Want us to move the owl to the other side?
Well, but then won't it not get everybody else?
I don't think we care. I prefer to stay off the owl.
If you don't want them seeing the back of your head, why don't we just move it?
All right.
Just gotta watch, see. Okay, how is
Let's
this
see.
plugged in? Okay.
Okay.
What's under there? That plugged in?
Is that better?
Still good, Sam?
That's the adapter piece.
Sounds okay.
Okay. This makes it so I can look over there and people don't see the back of my head.
That's a good point.
All right. So today we are going to get started with Confluence. So a little bit of an overview. We're going to talk about organizing Confluence, building your foundations, adding your content, and then planning your upkeep. So this is going to be kind of a high level overview, kind of a high level get started. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Agile philosophy here, just to warn you. So the first section here is organize, organize, organize. If you don't know what you want, you're not going to get it. So the first thing that I would say is that when you're talking about Confluence, you need to think about what you want Confluence to do for you. It's really, really easy to kind of sit there and go out and start putting stuff on Confluence. The problem is it's really, really easy to go out there and start putting stuff on Confluence. And if you don't kind of walk into it with an idea of what you're trying to use Confluence for, you may spend a lot of time setting something up only to find out that you're not using it, or that people stop using Confluence because it's not giving them the thing that they need. We actually, in a couple of places that I worked, we saw that happen where somebody set up a Confluence site and then everybody just stopped using it. And then somebody else set up a Confluence site, but because they had a better idea of what they were using it for, they actually did get people to adopt it. And now we're using that site a lot more. So what are some of the things that Confluence can do for you? You have document repositories. It's a place where you can keep, if you've got like a highly regulated industry that you're working in, Confluence can be a great place to act as a document repository to hold on to things like audit logs and stuff that you have to keep for your regulatory purposes. You can use it for project and team updates. So if your team is looking for some place to have their information, or if you have project managers and stakeholders that are looking for updates on what your project or what your team is doing, Confluence actually can do that for you. And I'm going to show you a little bit later on that there are some ways to tie into Jira to make giving those updates a little bit easier on you, because it's pulling that data directly out of Jira without having your stakeholders and project managers have to go in and look through cards themselves. You can do team collaboration. They have blogs, they have collaboration pages. So if you are not happy with the way that Teams is working or Slack is working, you can actually use Confluence as a place to do some team collaboration. And knowledge sharing. This is a great use for Confluence as well, so that you can actually set it up so that you have things like training videos, how-to pages, and Confluence actually has some features that help you so that you can tag those pages and it will create you a running index of all of your like how-to pages and things like that. Again, as easy as tagging, you don't actually have to go and create an index yourself. But if you think a little bit about what it is that you want Confluence to do for you before you start, it's going to make that transition into using Confluence a lot easier. And so the first thing I'm going to say, remember I did say I was going to talk about Agile a little bit, is think about your user personas. Who is using it? Who are you expecting to go in and actually use these Confluence pages? That's going to have a huge influence on what you choose to do with it. What are they going to be looking for? Making sure that you're keeping track of, I'm getting very distracted by Lauren's dog.
First, I wanted to know what was going on, then I figured out, oh, there's a dog there.
Puppy, puppy.
I'm still bigger than a puppy.
I'm easily distracted. So you're going to want to think about what are people going to be looking for. There's no point in putting a whole bunch of collaboration pages on Confluence if everybody's doing their chatting in Slack. Like, that's just common sense. And what is going to be the easiest way for them to find it? This takes a little bit of deeper level of analysis, but I've noticed that paying attention to where people go to look for stuff is going to help you considerably in managing where that content goes. And we are going to talk a little bit later about the fact that because it's a series of web pages, content does not have to be only in one place. So there's another thing to be thinking about there. All right. So enough of me expounding about organizing your life. Building your foundation. So starting as you mean to go on. So in the beginning, we're going to talk a little bit about spaces, read and edit permissions, and user interfaces. So first of all, Confluence organizes itself into what they call these spaces. And now you can have a space that's a personal space. You can have a space that's for a department or a project or something like that. I don't have a lot of examples here, but you see like there's an IT operations space, and then here's my personal space. So those spaces, you need to think about who's tying into those spaces and who is going to have read and edit permissions on those spaces. So it's going to kind of help you if you start at the very beginning, thinking about who can get in and who can use it. Managing user permissions and managing who's seeing those spaces is kind of an important thing for your start setup. For instance, if you're thinking about collaborating with your stakeholders, you're going to have to make sure that that's a space that your stakeholders are going to have access to, but not necessarily give them access to things that they shouldn't be seeing. So you can see here, I've got my personal space. I've kind of started making a few pages here a little bit, but you do have a whole bunch of settings here that allow you to manage those spaces. And so you'll see like you've got your sidebar, and this is your menu of all of these pages over here. And you can actually organize how these appear and what shows up in this side. So I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but you'll see that you can manage your space. Here's where you can look at the permissions for who has permissions to play around in those spaces. And contents and look and feel. So it even has themes and things like that that you can edit here under your space settings. So like I said, the first thing that you want to think about is going to be who's going to be in that space. So who can access it? Like I said, it's going to be important to make sure that anybody that is going to be using that space actually has the access to it. And I mention that because sometimes outside stakeholders, it's going to be difficult to tie them into it. And so you're going to, and also making sure that the space that you have set up actually ties into things like the Jira project that you're trying to pull your data from. So you hear, like I have a how-to article here, that kind of different thing. And I will admit to you, one of the things that I did discover when I was putting this presentation together is, unfortunately, in a lot of situations, some of this stuff is going to be dictated to you by your IT department. Your organization is going to come in and tell you there are certain things that you're allowed to do. And the place where I currently work, we're actually on the data center. And so that actually even has a different set of things that are permitted and sets of choices than the cloud version that I'm showing you here. So kind of keep that in mind when you're getting started with Confluence, is there may be some things that are being dictated to you by your organization. And so just because I'm showing it to you here doesn't necessarily mean it may be something that's available to you when you go to start it. You may have to go back to your IT department or other people. Okay. I'm sorry. It's telling me that my computer is not plugged in.
Switch out. Is this the?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take care of this.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's just making it very difficult to see my screen because it just pushed the brightness down. So, okay.
Are we back in business?
No. Something is very, very wrong here. I mean, it's plugged in. All right. Technical difficulties of a different sort entirely. It's telling me I have like 18 minutes left.
Okay, well, this will hustle.
Okay. All right. So for permissions, aside from just who can actually access the pages, the other kinds of permissions that you're going to want to be thinking about is you're going to want to be thinking about who actually creates your content. So who's creating your pages, who has the access to edit your pages, and who has the access to grant people permission to edit and add pages. Let me see. I don't know what to tell you. So over here, you're going to see that you're going to have your users and your groups. And you can see that that's going to be giving people permissions. So you're going to want to think about who's going to be able to create that content, because in some cases, you may not want that to be just anybody. In other cases, you may want that to be just anybody. Sorry, I'm feeling a little discombobulated now.
What kind of laptop is this? What's the brand?
I don't recall off the top of my head. It's whatever that is.
That's power there. That's something plugging power, isn't it?
So,
Does it have USB-C in it by any chance?
yeah, I have USB.
CC, right?
Um,
I'm not
No.
seeing it.
no.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, we'll keep going.
Okay. So user interfaces. So how are users looking for your content? So what you need to do next, now that I'm all discombobulated.
Feel free to log into your
Okay.
stuff on here.
Okay. Is remember this lovely little content bar over here? You need to think about how you're going to structure where people are going to find this data. Now, this is where I'm actually going to kind of pull the Agile back in again, is you kind of want to go here with the minimum viable product. You don't want to make this too complicated or have too many little drop downs over here, because the more complex you make it, the harder it's going to be for people to find stuff. And the more likely they are to simply give up using it. So you're gonna come in here and you're gonna figure out what it is exactly that you have as your hierarchy, your page hierarchy, and build it off of that. So that's going to go back to thinking about who your users are, what your big high level things are, and how they're going to be looking for that data. All right, add your content. You realize this was plugged into this when I left the house.
This is definitely live.
Power adapter or your computer.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna take a short break. This is literally telling me my computer is about to die. Oh wait, hold on. Nope, it's saying it's plugged in now.
Don't touch anything.
Don't touch anything. Okay. All right, so now it's saying it's plugged in. I feel a lot better now. Okay, so the types of Confluence pages. Your content here is king, of course. Can't find anything today. So now for most people, what they're gonna do is they're gonna be down here and say Team Gnomes needs a new page. What are they gonna do? They're gonna hit this create button. It's gonna say you can make a page, a whiteboard, or a blog. And they'll just say page, and it's gonna give you your nice little blank white page. And there's this template here, like a title and a place to put some stuff. This is great. This is very basic. It works. And if you can do nothing else, popping a whole bunch of text in there is fine. However, you do not just have to pop a whole bunch of text in there. There is plenty of other stuff you can do. Now, this one's a little bit different than what I'm used to. There's the templates. I knew where this was. Tyler, do you remember how to open the templates on this? Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Templates. So you're going to have this over here allows you to select actually a template for a web page. So say Team Gnome needs a retrospective page. I don't have to build that from scratch. I can build that starting from here. Gnome retrospective. And so now, lovely Team Gnome has a place to put all of their retrospective information with a nice handy little template. So that it kind of gives you a leg up that you do not have to start these pages from scratch. Team Gnome already has a lovely working agreement. And this is one of those collaborative pages that actually allows people to come in and put in their information and add things like what the role requirements are, where they're going to work from, like whatever they need.
So are there any templates that you use on a regular basis?
I do, in point of fact. The template that I use the most, partially because of the job that I have as a Scrum Master, is I love to use the how-to templates. All right, where did my templates go again? Like I said, I'm used to working on a different version of this, so all of my stuff is someplace different. Okay, create page.
How to template something that comes in with it?
Yes, the templates do come with it. I like to use this how-to article. So I actually created one of those earlier. So it gives you a little template here. You can put in like an explanation of what the article is about, a list of instructions. You can even put in things like special notes. There's like a special template thing that you can actually drop into a page that will show you these. What do they call those?
Excerpts?
Excerpts, yes. That allow you to put things that pre-format like notes or cautions or special things that you want to call out. Down here, this is actually one of the things that's driven by Confluence, related articles. it will actually put a list of related articles based on the labels that you add to your page. So here, if I wanted to add a label that this is Jira, for instance, it would actually go through, and in the related articles, it would look for other articles that have that label and list them down here so that you can actually do that, have it cross-index all of that without you having to go and physically tell it which pages to connect to. And you'll also see one interesting thing that it did down here. Here is a list of how-to articles. And so everything that I've tagged as a how-to article actually appears in this list. I didn't generate that. Confluence did it all on its own. I kind of pre-generated this one. These are meeting notes. So there's a template for meeting notes. We're having a meeting about the lack of profit. Because, you know, if you'll see, you know, the instructions are 1, start here, 2, silence, 3, profit. We're thinking maybe step 2 is that problem. So, you know, we're going to define step 2 at the all hands meeting. Maybe decide on a product to sell. That's the open action item there.
It might be good, I promise.
That's a good start.
You know. So again, lots of template choices. That you can kind of go into. You have blog posts, you have file lists. I don't have a list of files here to show you, but you can actually have pages that are nothing but lists of files. So if you're doing like document retention or things like that on Confluence, something like that's going to be very valuable to you. Blogs. I added a lovely blog post. So again, if you were looking to collaborate, you can even just have people read blogs and kind of have a kind of a ongoing conversation through that, which I think as an Agilist, I think is very lovely. I tried to make sure I didn't write this one too long though, because I'm known for writing the very long blog posts, unfortunately. So one of the other things that we like to use it for a lot is troubleshooting pages. Having not just how-tos, but pages that if people have run into problems with their tools, that you can actually create pages to help them troubleshoot those problems. Keep losing my cursor. I'm used to it being purple. It's not purple right now. So again, you can just hit create and that's fine. You can also put in whiteboards. This is one thing I know works very differently across the different versions of Confluence, is that sometimes these whiteboards, like here, you can just click it like this. In the data center one that I'm using, it's a little more complex than that. But you can also add things like we add a lot of diagrams. And there's ways to add like Jiffy diagrams and things like that directly into these kinds of pages to give people more visual representations.
Can multiple users collaborate on that at the same time?
I don't know if they can do it at the same time. I think that depends on which version of Confluence that you're using, but it does have the ability to have multiple people editing.
Yeah, you can. On Cloud, you can.
So like all 4 of us can on the same one at the same time, similar with Miro?
Yep, just like Miro.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know. It depends on which version of it you're using, because I don't think that the data center version that I'm using allows that. But we might also have permissions locked down on it too. Like that happens too. Okay, linking and tagging. As somebody who has done a lot of web design in the past, I just want to mention that just because something lives one place does not mean that is the only place that people should be able to access it. Finding things should be easy. So I did mention a little bit earlier that you have the ability to link these pages using these labels. So you can add labels to the bottoms of pages. And for every label that you add, it will help with that cross-linking. So that is a way for you to go and kind of logically group a whole bunch of stuff, because then you can use the search features to go in and search for that tag and find all of the pages that have that tag on it. So it's kind of like a glorified hashtag thing. I don't think anybody uses hashtags like that on the internet, really, but you can. That's the idea. Cross-linking content. The other thing I'm going to put in as a bug in your ear is that you should be able, if nothing else, to put links across pages. Like with my how-to thing, it's really, really great that it builds this little thing for me down here with all the how-to articles. It's really, really great that I can look through my little, list here. But what if this person isn't looking at this list? I know a lot of people, because they have the little laptop screens, will actually collapse this list so they don't even see it, which means that they don't know that that content is there. So if you're expecting them to see that in that list, they may not be seeing that. So I highly recommend that for something like Team Gnomes here, for instance, you'll see I've got a link to the Team Gnome working agreement. So that way, when somebody is looking at it like this, they can just click right through to it, and they're not missing content because it hasn't been cross-linked across different pages. It's also nice because that way you can take something like a file or a collaborative document. It can live in one place, but then everybody who needs it can get to it, and they're all collaborating on the same document instead of having multiple copies of documents out there. I've seen this happen where one team is not paying attention to what the other team is putting up on the SharePoint or whatever, Confluence, and all of a sudden you have 3 different versions of the exact same information hiding out there somewhere because nobody else knows that the other 2 exist, until somebody runs across it and goes, why is this one different? And they're like, oh, you're not using the right one. I think we've all played that game at some point or another. And marking excerpts. Now, I'll admit this is something that I don't have the ability to do on mine, but I know that it's something that can be done, where you can take a section of a page and mark it as an excerpt. And what that will allow you to do is on a different page, you will be able to put in that excerpt, and it will actually draw that information from the original page. So it's basically your way of having like a nice little definition or something. So if somebody has that definition and it changes, it's going to change through all of the excerpts that are marked. It's not just going to be changed on the one page. So it allows you to sort of cascade update things that are changing quickly, or or where you need for it to be uniform across multiple different pages. And interfacing with outside data. Now, this is where it gets fun, at least for me anyway. You can add calendars to Confluence. And not just calendars where people can put information on there. It literally has a way to link to things like Outlook calendars. And also to take a calendar that is on your Confluence page and allow people to export that information to their own calendars. So Confluence has got a lot of ways that you can actually interface with data that's outside of Confluence. You can interface with outside documents. There's ways to do that. I'm not allowed to do that, so. But there are ways for you to actually interface it with outside documents. There are gadgets that link to Jira and Jira Service Management. And if you've ever created a dashboard in Jira, many of those same gadgets that you see on Jira dashboards can also be dropped into Confluence pages. I've actually created Confluence pages that have gadgets that were going into my Jira and pulling the status of all of the stories for a particular epic and displaying that in a gadget so that my project managers who were trying to keep track of what was going on could actually just look at that gadget and not have to log into Jira at all.
I do think that's specific to data centers, well, just data center now.
Is it?
You can't do it on cloud.
You can't do it on cloud. Okay, that I did not know.
It's tragic.
That's very, very tragic.
There are workarounds, but they're not pretty.
So there are gadgets that you can put in there that will give people information if apparently you're using the correct version of Confluence. And so, I mean, and definitely poke around with it because there's a lot of stuff that it will allow you to sort of grab from other places. So again, you're lowering your overhead in maintaining all of this data if you're pulling it directly from its source, as opposed to having to go in and update it every time something changes. All right, plan your upkeep. So Agile is not just for software anymore. So as you're thinking about creating your Confluence stuff, the first thing you want to think is remember your Agile training. Minimum viable product. You want to get started. You don't want to put a whole bunch of barriers to getting started by saying it has to be too overly complex. Like I mentioned a whole bunch of different things that Confluence can do for you. And I think initially for a lot of people, it's going to be, well, I want it to do all those things. And you can get there. But if you try to start by doing all of those things, you're going to find that it's going to be overwhelming. People are going to stop caring about the project, or they're going to stop using the site because it just seems like it's too complicated because it's so fussy. So minimum viable product, maybe start with one thing you want it to do for you, or two things that you want it to do for you. And allow it to build out more organically rather than trying to start everything all at once and treating it like this big overwhelming project. Incremental progress. I have never seen anybody try to start up with a tool like this and have it be perfect the first time out of the gate. It's just not going to happen. So you need to give yourself room to sort of let people explore, figure out how they're going to use this product and how they're going to put all of these pages together, and let it build from there. So maybe you start out just with a whole bunch of how-to pages, and that's great, and it builds yourself a nice little index, but then maybe you want to add some training videos. And then you kind of figure out how you're going to layer in those training videos. And then maybe somebody wants to put process documentation. And so you kind of can start layering things in, work on the incremental progress, because again, it takes people a little while to get used to doing something. And then once they start doing it, you can start adding more features and they won't feel overwhelmed by the amount of features that you've tried to put in there. And working software over comprehensive upkeep. This is probably the most important thing, do not set up your Confluence pages so that they require a whole bunch of constant comprehensive upkeep. You're not going to do it. If it requires everybody to be in there, keeping everything moving, changing things all of the time, the chances are at some point it's going to become horribly outdated because people are going to forget. People are not going to be in there doing everything. So you kind of want to have a plan for how you're going to make it with as little upkeep as possible. And again, using some of those tools that it gives you for automatically updating things, for linking to other things, and for cross-linking all of your content is going to help you keep it moving and keep it updated so that it's still useful to people without taking up a whole bunch of your time. All right, and that was kind of the end of the presentation that I had. So did anybody have any questions or anything that they wanted me to try out or see? Sorry about the technical difficulties.
So I have a question about the last section that you talked about there. So what if I already have a team that has like a database of documents already and they want to move over to Confluence? Like, would you suggest that same incremental approach and say, yeah, just put a couple documents on at a time? Or what would you say for a team that has that?
Do they use the database a lot? Well, I think,
yeah, yes.
I think that, again, it's going to depend, going back to your Agile, who is your user? What's the user persona? If they're using that a lot, then it's probably worth the time and effort to dump all of that data onto Confluence at once and kind of try to find a way to structure it so that it's easy for them to find. If it's something that they're only using periodically, then maybe you don't want to try to do that all at once, because it's going to be a lot of time and effort for something that they're not going to access much. And you may want to give yourself a little bit of room to figure out what structure is going to work so that they're able to utilize that data more effectively. Because I'm assuming if they want to throw it on a Confluence page that they're doing it for a reason. Lauren, you had a question?
Not a question, just more of a comment about how one thing that I've really valued, especially when I've gone through and added like a ton of documentation to Confluence, is the ability to have people in real time, like highlight and comment. I don't know if that's a data center thing necessarily.
You can do that in data center. I've seen people do it.
Yeah, it's so neat. Like, because especially like, you know, the thing with having static, you know, pages, documentation or no, is that, you know, sometimes the information that's there, you know, things change or there will be a question that comes up. And if your colleagues are also in Jira / Confluence, you can at them and literally in real time be like, hey, so-and-so, is this still the case? I thought that they upgraded the system, you know, or whatever the context may be. And it's just made it like that little collaborative piece has really kind of helped. Like, it's like not just a wiki, you know, it's a living, breathing, you know, repository for information and sharing knowledge.
And this, for those who may not know, this is what she's talking about. This little icon right here allows people to actually make comments on the page.
Or you can highlight the text.
Yeah.
And it'll give you the option, or should give you the option, to do like a comment on a specific piece of a page.
I guess I'm a little not quite.
There it is. Comment.
Like, please impact my life as little as possible.
Or it could be, I hope it has a positive impact to make my work life easier.
Does this work the way it does in data center where you see that at the bottom? Yeah, the way the data center does it is that if you scroll to the bottom, that's where all the comments appears at the bottom.
I think for those inline ones, you have to click on them to see them.
Yeah. And you can make like tables of contents out of this. Like, I know I didn't go through like all of the templates, but it's really worth taking the time to explore what kind of templates that they have available, because some of them are really neat and do a lot of really interesting things for you. And with other ones, it's like, if you want to put meeting minutes up on there, you don't want to spend a whole bunch of time formatting, having a nice template to just drop in there where you can just fill it out is really, really helpful. Any other?
I really liked, Lauren, what you said about the living, breathing document, because yeah, a lot of other tools also have it too, like Google Docs and Microsoft Word these days. But just today I was in a meeting with a client, and we were having a conversation inside of Confluence as we're taking notes, saying, "Hey, ask this question," inside of this meeting, and at the same time, it's noting that down. It's letting me know to ask that question, and also we're looking at what we talked about was documented live, which is really a cool feature.
So again, like I said, it's a very collaborative way to use it. So it's more than just a whole bunch of static web pages. I know that we have a lot of issues where I work with regulatory stuff. So there's a lot of documentation that we put on Confluence so that we have an audit trail. So that if somebody ever comes in and questions whether or not we followed the processes that we were supposed to follow, we've got all of the documentation right there and everybody can see it. And you can follow that trail if you need to. And those, the reason I mentioned that as a use case is because those are not documents that people are looking at every day. They're mostly there for like an archive kind of situation, but it makes that archive available to anybody who might need it in an emergency. I've heard that when they come in and audit, you do not want to be on the wrong end of that audit. And if you can't find something, those auditors are going to be really upset that you can't find it. So I highly encourage you to kind of explore and play with the different templates, and to think about overall what it is that Confluence can do for you. Because maybe even if you already have Confluence pages, maybe there's something else that it could be doing for you that you're not using it for now. And sort of expanding that repertoire to make your work life easier. Any other questions? Anything I might be able to answer for you?
What do you think is your favorite feature about Confluence?
Oh, the Jira gadgets. I love them.
Oh no.
I absolutely love them. But the how-to features I liked as well. But again, that probably is just a function of the job that I have, because I like having the process documentation where I can point people to it and say, this is how you do it. And to have all of that sort of organized and cross-linked without me having to do it myself was really valuable. I also like to create team pages and put like team calendars and things on there so that like we know when everybody has PTO.
Oh.
Like I can see who's going to be in, who's going to be out. And when we start doing things like capacity planning, it makes it really simple for me to go in and it's like, oh, look, I know who's going to be out this sprint or next sprint. I don't know if anybody else likes it as much as I do, but but I like it.
Yeah, the calendars is something I haven't used. I think I've got plans tomorrow already.
And we actually use it to have, like, we have a master calendar that has like all of our releases and our sprints and things on it as well, which is more complicated than you might think, because, you know, you've got releases, you've got off-cycle releases, you've got different products that are releasing at different times. And so having a nice master calendar there that tells you when all of those things are going to happen is also helpful.
Lauren, your favorite is /code?
Yeah, so if you, at least in the cloud version, if you do /code, you can add a code block in and actually tell it what language your my dog is threatening to come into view again. What language your block of code is, and it'll do some of the formatting for you. I was doing some analytics for a company, and they were a SQL shop. And so I had queries that I would run on a regular basis. And so I just, on my personal Confluence page, had those saved and could go in and just like at the click of a button, you know, save or retrieve those so I could run them again. And it was so easy. And like, yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Anything else anybody else knows of that they really like? I mean, I'm not an expert, but I do know how to get started.
One of my favorite tools is the Jira issues macro.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use JQL to import whatever Jira issues are out there into like a table for you. And you can actually work those issues from Confluence if you have access to them.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah, I did see that.
That was a lot of fun. And on our teams, a lot of people will use these to build the reports that we deliver to our clients and say, here is what our sprint looked like, and here's a report of how it went. This is how many things went through. This is what fell off. And because they already have these JQL filters built already, they can just use a templated Confluence page like you talked about and pull all of those issues in automatically. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, my stakeholders like pretty pictures, so giving them graphs and charts and things like that, they just love it. And I love that I don't have to go in and like update those myself all the time. Like it'll just do it for me. Much like dashboards in Jira.
Yeah.
I love dashboards in Jira. All righty, well, it looks like we are almost out of time. Any last thoughts? Questions? All right, well, thank you everybody so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Bring your dog back.
And our next event is going to be on Atlassian Forge on May 4th. So that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So you can look forward to seeing that event going out soon.
All right, so be watching. We're 2 weeks.
Yep.
2 weeks, really?
2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a special guest to come in, and that was the time that worked for him. So.
Yep.
Okay, what kind of dog is this beast?
We don't know actually, because she was adopted, but we think because of like the size of this head that she's got some Mastiff. Hot pepper. Oh yeah, we're just gonna lay down on top of me. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
You have a Mastiff lapdog.
I do. Believe it or not. Good girl.
All righty. Well, everybody have a great day.
Good night, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that was one big head on that dog. It had to be full. That
Is
dog had to
Sam
be
still here?
beats.
Yes,
Yeah.
he is.
Because I can't stop the recording.
Oh, his computer's locked.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I'll go
I was saying,
I know that.
I thought you were just gonna break it.
Yeah, I can't stop it from recording. He's the host.
Well, that's funny.
So did your adapter just have issues with the cord or something, or who knows?
It must have been. I think it started working again after I pulled this out and plugged it back in, so it might have just wiggled its way loose. I feel kind of bad. Like disrupted my whole presentation because I couldn't figure out how to get my computer powered.